Thanks, Lane, and also thanks to you and Jim for inviting me along today and being part of the network. It was great to hear those 2-minute tasters. There's so many links, and it kind of almost that spectrum kind of indicates on our side of things the kind of spectrum of work that we're doing here in London and London National Park City. So just to let you know what I'm going to talk about today, I've got about 15 minutes. I'm going to just start off with a little bit of an overview of London National Park City, for those who might not know about it. I'm then going to talk about the Rangers programme, which is what I work on, and more specifically looking at some of the work of the volunteer rangers and how it fits with nature connection, health and well-being. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about the future plans, potential collaborations, etc. So as Lane said, do feel free to put any questions in the chat and I can look at them afterwards, or you'll get email and contact details at the end, so you can always ping us over any questions or thoughts. So London National Park City, what is London National Park City? I'm hoping everyone's heard of it, but I know that might not be the case. So we're going to go back about 6 years when Dan Raven Ellison, who is the founder of London National Park City, he was traveling around the UK visiting other national parks, and he started to think about urban nature and why that wasn't maybe valued or perceived as so valuable, and why maybe cities couldn't be national parks. Now I know a few of you are from national parks, so there's obvious reasons why the city can't due to the legislation and stuff, but he started to question, you know, what if we looked at London as a national park city? Many people are surprised that you're looking at kind of nearly 50% of London actually being green and blue, so that's parks, woodlands, gardens, canals. And so this idea of embracing our natural environment, the outdoor environment in the city, recognising the benefits that this space provides to us and the residents of the city, and also the opportunities for making London greener, healthier and wilder, is what led to the National Park City movement. And actually in July 2019, so a year and a half ago, the Mayor Sadiq Khan declared London the world's first national park city. So what do I mean? We describe National Park City as a place, a vision and a movement. So the place is Greater London, although it could be other places, I'll come on to that. And the vision is to make the city greener, healthier and wilder, and the movement is everyone. So it started as a grassroots movement, and it's very much still got that ethos. It's about everyone working together to make the city greener, healthier and wilder. So we want to see the city, more green spaces in the city. We want to connect people to nature and through that to each other. We want to celebrate our outdoor spaces, catalyse positive environmental action, improve health and well-being, and address inequalities, and showcase sustainable and livable cities for the future. So I'm going to kind of whistle through this all. There's quite a lot that I could talk about, but jumping on from that, going to talk a little bit around specifically the Rangers programme, which is our flagship volunteer programme at London National Park City. So across London and obviously across the country, there are hundreds of community groups, individuals, businesses working to improve cities for nature. And so at London National Park City, we decided to try and increase our support to those individuals, groups and businesses. So last year we set up the Rangers programme. We have 54 volunteer rangers across London who are helping to support to make the capital greener, healthier and wilder. So we cover almost every borough, and rangers work outside of their boroughs, but the main aim of it is for rangers to become a centre of their community, providing support to organisations and individuals who are working towards the aims of London National Park City, and also to instigate new projects, new ideas and new initiatives to make the city greener and healthier and wilder. So wide variety of projects. I'm going to touch on some of them and link them to health and well-being in a moment. But the great thing about our Rangers programme as well is it's a really diverse mix of individuals, a real range of skills and experience and ideas. So we've got everything from teachers and foragers and people working in community gardens and rewilders through to artists. We've got people working as photographers. We've got people who are carrying out construction and building. So it's a real mix of people involved. And the other key element of the Rangers programme is really bringing those people together and learning and experiences from each other and seeing how that can then help support initiatives out in London. So just a little bit about the programme support, which might be useful. So myself and my colleague Florrie, who sadly can't be with us today, but we actually do a job share. So we both work 3 days a week on the Rangers programme. And I started about 3 days before the lockdown started in March. So it's been an interesting first year. The Rangers came on board about then, and we properly launched the programme in May. So it has been a different first year, as obviously everyone has found, for the programme. There have been some things that we haven't been able to do. One of the main things obviously is around getting communities outdoors, getting communities coming together to carry out activities, projects, which is obviously a little bit difficult when you have lockdown/pandemic. But we have done quite a few things, and also we've shifted a lot and used the opportunities that it's actually provided. And I think someone mentioned earlier around actually some of the benefits of doing things online, and I'll come into that a bit later. But we've moved on to online for a lot of things, but also we are now looking forward to the future and what we can do next. So a key thing that we do in supporting Rangers is that we support them with their ideas and their projects and their initiatives. We link them with existing organisations and existing projects, and we also link them together. So actually this evening we've got 4 Rangers who are really experienced in fundraising. They're doing a workshop with other Rangers to support them in looking at funding opportunities and how to go about funding for projects. So it's all about collaborative working. But I'll also say as well, it's 100% not about reinventing the wheel. It's about showcasing what's already happening, supporting initiatives, whether they be small or big, that are already happening, to really try and get everyone involved in projects across London. So I'm going to talk about different areas of nature connection, health and wellbeing, and some of the examples of Ranger projects and work of London National Park City. And underpins everything that the Rangers are doing. But here's just some of the examples on some specific areas. So mental health and well-being and the role of nature and outdoors on that. There's huge amounts of documentation on that side, and it's something which Rangers are really, really interested in, and a number are working quite closely on. So we have a few Rangers who work or support other organisations and are looking to how those organisations can grow through the support of London National Park City. So we've got Ranger Kieran, who works for Mind Food, which is a small charity in West London, and it works around supporting people with mental health problems and wider community in growing, getting involved in community gardens, and really utilising their time and space outdoors to really help support them. Likewise, Dose of Nature, I'm not sure if you've heard of them. I'm going to be putting some links at the end, and I think presentation will be sent around as well, so you'll have those. Dose of Nature is a small one down in South London. We've got some Rangers who've been trained up by Dose of Nature who are now going to be leading outdoor walks for people with mental health problems and support on that side of things. St Raphael's Edible Garden is one I wanted to pick up on. So we've got Ranger Jim there, and this is over in West London and Brent. And it's an area, it's a relatively deprived area. There's a lot of flats, and there's this beautiful kind of oasis of a community garden and an edible garden. People go and grow their own food and that side of things, a real community spirit. Obviously a lot of problems during lockdown, and actually they continued volunteering opportunities there, but just on a singular basis. And the feedback that provided, having that space to go to for a lot of people who lived on their own, combating loneliness and that side of things, incredibly valuable. And then forest bathing. So we've got a number of Rangers who carry out forest bathing and support communities on that side. Physical health and well-being. So the slightly more kind of, I suppose, active approach to things. So again, it's something which Rangers are working on a lot, and something which is important to us as a National Park City. We're working with Ordnance Survey on a project around route mapping. So we're getting Rangers to map local routes around their area, walking, running and cycling, encourage people to explore their local area, which is, I think, something that has greatly increased since lockdown. I have a lot of anecdotal evidence of people discovering parks at the end of their road that they never knew were there before. So we have that, but it's also looking at mapping community features. So say it would be a community garden walk route through different community gardens, food growing, etc. We've got some working on cycling and supporting people getting out and cycling more and campaigning around improved cycle networks. The Line is a great one which links physical health with art. It's in East London. It's linked to Cody Dock in a way, actually, so I'll do them together. So Cody Dock is a community site, wonderful biodiversity, great volunteering. It's on the River Lee, and then you can go down the River Lee, and then you've got the Line which also runs alongside, and it's a number of different art installations along a wonderful walking or cycling route. So we're working with the Line and Cody Dock. We've got a ranger at Cody Dock, and together we're working to kind of promote and encourage people to use it more. A couple of weeks ago, it was the Nature of Cities Festival, which I think you can probably find a lot of the things online. So it's an international festival. Loads of different talks, workshops and that side of things. And we actually did a virtual field trip with Cody Dock. So exploring online, obviously, Cody Dock and the Line, but also a lovely trip down the River Lee on a kayak to showcase the the benefits of being around water and the beauty of that side of things. So next one, I'm going to nature, food and connecting to our local area. You can tell I had a little bit of difficulty of how to name this one. I had body, health and well-being as well there, but this is kind of the side of actually what we eat and how we use that as a way of connecting to both nature but also our local area. A lot of cases, and it's improving, but people buying stuff from the supermarket, there's no connection actually with what they're eating. So a number of rangers looking at this, particularly our foragers, who love advocating the fact that you can find so much food in your local park or even just around the city itself. So they do foraging walks in local parks and kind of showcase to people that you can make a variety of foods from stuff that you forage. Food growing and orchards is another area which a number of rangers work on. And I just wanted to flag up Nettle Fest, which is happening on the is it the 4th of May, the May bank holiday? I'm not sure what the date is. So it's an online one for a couple of hours, which is being led by rangers, and it's going to showcase cooking with nettles. It's the health benefits of nettles, where you can find them, some of the biology and that side of things. And we're looking at having regular forager meetups to showcase different food stuff that you can find around the city. And the last couple of ones were youth nature connection. A very important side of things, I'm sure everyone agrees, is getting young people and encouraging young people and supporting young people in connecting with nature. So we have a number of rangers who work alongside forest schools and carry out forest school sessions and looking at expanding those side of things into other woodlands. There's actually a London National Park City Schools network. So that's linking together teachers who are interested in how to support making the city greener, healthier and wilder, and how to work with their students on that side. And we have a number of rangers who are teachers who are integrating the work into their teaching. And then we've actually got a number of rangers who are on the Natural History Museum Youth Panel at the moment, which is a group of young people who are looking at issues of access, diversity and inclusion in green spaces. So we've got rangers working kind of across the board of how to encourage more young people into the natural environment and outdoors, but also how to maybe support a higher level of involvement and particularly maybe around decision making. I think there's a big gap of that, of young people feeling disconnected from nature because they don't feel like they have any input. And the final one I wanted to talk about was cultural and community health and well-being. Which is the side that our outdoor spaces can be used to really support local communities and community health and bringing communities together, as well as showcasing here in London the amazing diversity of cultures. So we have a couple of rangers in Greener and Deeper who have set up South London Seed Group, which is a great initiative, website coming up. And that's showcasing seeds from different cultures. They're carrying out growing projects to grow different foods linked to people's cultures and have cultural food swaps and that side of things to really get local communities coming together and understanding those within their community who might be from a different culture. A lot of nature-based learning is another side that we push onto. And then the community project side, so gardens, conservation, a lot of litter picks and greening and that side of things. So opportunities to bring communities together through the power of the outdoors. And I suppose that's probably one of the examples of an area that we haven't been able to progress as much as possible due to restrictions, but rangers are still managing to carry out some of those activities and a lot of plans in the future. Oh, and we're on to the future, and I think I've got a couple of minutes left. So the future, what's happening? So we're getting some new rangers. So we've just closed applications for a new cohort of 50 rangers. So we're just going through them at the moment. We've got some amazing people who've applied. So although we've only got 50, maybe we can try and bring in a few more, we'll see. But so we're going to have a whole another 50 rangers ready to get going. So then we'll have a community of 100 rangers, and we'll really start to be able to see some kind of difference being made, but also bringing those people together is really vital. Collaborative projects, so we want to work more on collaborative projects with other organisations, particularly looking at how some of our ideas from rangers can be piloted on a small scale, how they might link with other initiatives that people might be thinking of, and how actually we can use some of these to showcase and support other initiatives that people are looking to develop. And then the final one is we're also looking across the UK and the world. So London might be the first national park city, but it's definitely not going to be the last. There's a number of other cities across the UK and the world who are interested, and we've got various connections and we're doing various work with them. Glasgow is really looking at becoming a national park city, Galway in Ireland, Adelaide in Australia. So we're also making this not just a London movement, it's not just a national movement, it's a global movement to really kind of highlight how our cities across the world can be greener, healthier and wilder. And that brings me to an end. I kind of waffled through it, but hopefully that gave you a good snapshot. Got my email address there, so there's a rangers@nationalparkcity.org email, so that's probably the best one to use. It goes to both me and Florrie, so that means that if one of us is off, the other will see it. You've got our website there, and then I've just popped down the details of some of those other projects that I mentioned in case you wanted to check them out. But do email if you have any questions or any ideas of projects that you think there might be links with. There may well be initiatives that we are doing or that rangers are carrying out that might be very similar to something that you're doing, where we could either support you or maybe even provide you with some of that data if you were looking for kind of a funded project and looking for some kind of support for how you can go and get funding. But I will leave it at that.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much. This has been a really, really inspirational morning. So, and it's just great to recognise so many names as well. So, welcome from the northwest, from a wet, rainy, miserable morning up here in the northwest. My brother lives down on the south coast, and he's always permanently sunshine whenever I speak to him, so I'm always very envious. I work for an organisation called the Mersey Forest. I came for 3 months, and that was 18 years ago. So, as I said, we're in the northwest of England, where we cover Merseyside and Cheshire. So we are at an actual place, and we have a plan, and the plan on the right there, and the plan's important because it's embedded within planning policy, national planning policy, and then with local plans. So that's really important in terms of getting things done. So we're also a partnership. So this is the partnership. Our definition of partner is anyone who wants to play. So that's really important. We work with a really wide range of partners, and we do have a very strong legal agreement between the local authority partners and the Devon family, including Natural England, Environment Agency and Forestry Commission. So that's how we're set up and governed. And what do we do? Well, we're one of 10 community forests. And I was really interested in the presentation before that came from Twitter. Well, I think the community forests came from the back of an envelope down the pub on a Friday night 30 years ago. So that's the story I've been told. So we were set up to bring forestry down from the hills into the places where people lived. And this is St Helens, and the top slides are, the top two left pictures there are what I found when I moved up from university down in the southeast in 1990. And then the bottom slide shows how the place has been transformed with trees, but not just with trees, but with people as well. So we're a community forest, and the clues in the title read, so we work with people. Everything we do is with people and planting trees and enabling other habitats. So that's sort of the essence of what we get up to. So in some of the activities that we did, I'm not going to talk about all about the Mersey Forest, but I just want to put a little bit of context to this, because if it wasn't for planting 9 million trees, we wouldn't be able to run the Natural Health Service, because we wouldn't have had the assets. So we have a huge amounts of work over the past 25 years to plant trees. So that's 20 trees for every single child born since 94. So lots of work physically transforming the landscape, but also working with people to transform lives. So the question I think we ought to pose to ourselves is why would an environmental organisation be interested in health? And I think you're here, and I'm really hoping I'm not going to be teaching you to suck eggs, because this is what we all really strongly believe in. And I'm not going to go through all of what we do in terms of connecting people to nature. So we do increase the amount of woodland cover, and that improve the natural environment. That's a sort of our baseline. We do encourage more people to be more active more often, so that's that population level, and we've done lots of work around access to woodlands, creating new woodlands, creating paths, creating walks, cycle routes, putting them on the website. So that's really about getting us all active. And then there's some work that is around identifying the benefits that green space and green nature-based solutions provide. So that's a bit more academic, so working with the universities to do environmental monitoring. That's sort of the passive benefits of greenery. And then what I'm going to talk about now is about the Natural Health Service. So that's about a really smaller proportion of people, looking how we can support people with a range of conditions. And I don't need to convince you anymore. We know why connecting with nature is good for us. So this is a little bit about the Natural Health Service. As I said, it's about using the natural environment as a health asset, and that's changed over the last 30 years. I can't tell you how different the Northwest and around parts of St Helens and Liverpool is from when I moved up here 30 years ago. It's an area of real inequalities. So people hear about Cheshire and they think about footballers' wives, but even within places like Cheshire, there are real pockets of deprivation, and that's the area where we're working. You can see on the map there, the darkest areas are the areas of greatest need, and that's where we target all of our interventions, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So we don't offer everything. We're quite clear about what we offer. I suppose we're trying to simulate the big pharma. So we would talk about a product, a bit like Glaxo, or so we talk about health walks, horticultural therapy, forest school, or bushcraft if it's done outside school, mindful contact with nature, and then conservation, healthy conservation. So they're our sort of standard products. We might market them, in fact we do market them very differently, and I'll talk about that in a bit, and they're run for between 8 to 12 weeks for between 10 and 20 people. So that's in a nutshell, but I think it's just really important to show you some of the people, because I don't want to have this slide all very theoretical. These are people who have been involved on some of the activities, and actually all of them are in really, really deep urban areas. So the photograph in the centre, the little girl, that was probably the most deprived part of, and this is in Cheshire, but there's a picture on the left is right in the heart of Liverpool. But you can find nature, and we all know that you can find nature right in the centre, and it's how we connect with nature, and that's what we're helping people to do. So we're not about taking people outside in buses, driving people for miles to connect. It's just about identifying locations that are accessible, close to where people live. So we're talking about full-scale sustainability here, but also when the courses are finished, people can go back to that place as well. So over the year, we've had to stop what we've been doing, and I should say that we've been running the Natural Health Service for about 7 or 8 years, and the last year has been very, very difficult, as it has been for everybody else. And some of our work has gone online. So I'm just at the process of restarting the programme for the next year as soon as we can do so safely. And I thought it'd just be interesting for you to see how we go about it and some of the issues that we consider. And I don't have all the answers, but this is, hopefully, if you're doing something similar, you might recognise some of these points here. So we look at identifying local need, working out where the barriers are, and that's what I was saying before about making sure it's accessible, that you've got loos, that you've got places where people can gather safely. We deliver with partners, and I'll show you a slide in a minute on that, but it's really important that we don't helicopter people in, that we work with community members who are sufficiently trained and got all the insurance and the checks as well around safeguarding. So that's a really key part of what we do. It's not bringing people in. Never underestimate the reason why people come along, and it's not just to go about and getting physically active, it's about meeting people they've met the previous week. Lots around skills development and qualifications, and that depends on what activity we're doing, but we really focus on what next, the signposting. How can we link people to activities that are happening after the events, the course is finished? And that's, I think, what I think about before we do anything. So if we're starting somewhere new, where can we signpost people to afterwards? And I say we're now post-pandemic, or coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, and in that time there's been a huge increase in volunteering. People have identified places local to them where they never knew before, so that's really positive. Negative, we've had a lot of vandalism, and that's just been mentioned in the chat before. So that's how I'm looking at designing the programme. We have funding, so that's a question people might want to ask. At the moment we've got 5 funding streams. And each of them are slightly different, and so this colour chart on the side identifies what we're delivering, where, with which funding stream, what day and how long. So this is part of the project plan which I'm putting together at the moment. It's only really early stage, because when it kicks off big time in May, then it will be all systems go. And then I talked before a little bit about the delivery partners. So it's working with a range of partners. So it's not that we deliver it ourselves, we work as a partnership, as we do with everything with the Mersey Forest. Really strong partnership with the local universities, but not just the local universities, but also universities around the country that specialise in this area, such as Exeter and Derby and Sheffield. So really strong links with academia and supporting PhDs and master's studies as well, but also in terms of the evaluation. I actually like the qualitative stuff. So, numbers, I do like numbers, but when people talk about what it's meant to them, then that is just wonderful. And I love the idea of the videos that I was just talking about before. So we don't do enough videos, and I think hearing it in people's voices, in their own voice, is sometimes much better than seeing it written down. So I've just said this morning's been really inspirational. And it's important for us to share what we do. I'm really open about what we've done and how we've done it and how we could do better. I'm really open to say what, if I did it again, how I do things differently. But also we've been pushed by funders to apply for, to enter into awards, but also to connect with policymakers. And so the 25-year environment plan, the Natural Health Service, is mentioned in there in chapter 3. And then encouraged to, there's a photograph on the left, that was the Permanent Secretary of DEFRA with the leader of the council and Professor from Liverpool, John Moores. So again, it's making sure what we're doing really raises the profile of the health benefits of connecting with nature. And I said that I was very open about what our learning has been, and that I was really happy to share that. We don't do anything by keeping it to ourselves. We want to share this and get the message out as wide as we can. So we know it works, we've got the evidence. We know it's important to show value, so that's sometimes why we might want to do a social return on investment, that sort of exercise, or also the evaluation, and make sure we put it in the right language for the right audience. I talked before about products, and like you might have seen the slide that said horticultural therapy. There was never in a month of Sundays I'd go out and put a poster up saying, come along to our horticultural therapy session or our healthy walks. So that, you know, in some of the areas you work, that just would not work at all. It might work elsewhere. So we would probably mark it as gardening for all, or walks with your camera, that sort of thing. I know it's not obvious, but someone did mention to one of the participants when they were doing some comms with them, and they talked about horticultural therapy, and that person told them they were not doing any effing therapy. So you just have to make sure that you're really careful about how we advertise what we're doing, but we still have product fidelity as well. That's, again, is really key, that we know what we're offering. I think for some environmental organisations in the beginning, not so much now, but I think there was a temptation to bend the spend. So we'd get some environmental money, you know, we'd get some health money, but really we'd just be using it to do some conservation work. But I think it's been really clear that, you know, if it is a wellbeing project, then it has to be at the people, and the environment is part of it, but the focus has to be around supporting and caring for people, rather than trying to use people as cheap labour to do stuff on the nature reserve or something like that. Before I mentioned about evidence, gathering sensitively and consistently, and can't emphasise that enough, and that's been quite a challenge when we've been working with PhD candidates. We listen, we've changed, we've adapted. You know, if you'd have spoken to me 5 years ago, you know, what we're offering now is very different. And then we have a mantra in forestry about right tree, right place. Well, that's exactly the same for what we're doing with the Natural Health Service. It has to be the right activity in the right place with the right participant group. If you get those, if you triangulate that properly, you get a really, really great outcome. Not everything works everywhere with types of people. So that's, I've learned that because I live in the area and I know the people, and I know, you know, even within a town, it was an area, you get to know the differences within the population, the age group, the demographic, the deprivation levels, and you know what would work in a certain place. And that's been tested over the last, the last few years. We've not got it right all of the time. And then as a community forest, I would say that it's the mosaic of habitat. So it's not just all about the woodlands, it's about the areas of heathland, of parks, all of our urban green infrastructure that has become our asset. So we need to promote it. I mean, that's we as everyone. And that stronger voice, I think, is getting the message out there to the mainstream health sector. But I think, you know, we are under areas of continued budgetary pressure. Climate change is aware, so we're never standing still. We're always looking at how we can adapt and how we can improve the way. And what we're trying to do actually is to keep the future costs away from the NHS. But on the day-to-day basis, it's about how we can use our natural environment as a health asset. And then that is it, I think. There we are, more from trees, and this is an image of a forest, and if you're from this area, you'll recognise some of the landmarks on there. So that is the end of the presentation.